for this afternoon's meditation. I wonder what kind of meditation that you'd all like to do. Do you have any preferences? What kind of meditation you'd like? Breath meditation? Okay, is that a popular choice? Who wants to do breath meditation? Okay, who wants to do loving kindness meditation? Can't vote more than once. Who wants to do vipassana meditation? Nobody. Very unpopular. True students of Ajahn Brahm, what can I say? Okay, so which one did we have the most for? I think, was it breath or loving kindness? Let's try it again. Breath meditation? Okay. Lukewarm support. Loving kindness meditation? I think the loving kindness wins. But don't worry, if you sneakily watch your breath, I won't tell anybody, okay? Okay, so we'll do some loving kindness meditation. Actually, the Buddha taught all these different kinds of meditation, and each one has its own value and its own particular qualities. Breath meditation is said to have the special quality of stilling distracted thinking. Loving kindness meditation has a special quality of overcoming anger and hatred. So sometimes when we're thinking about what meditation to do, we can try out a few different ones and we get to see what different effects they have on the mind. And after you've done that a few times and you get to know that particular meditation, then you can sort of get a feel for what's the most appropriate one to do at any time. It's not always going to be the same one. And it's also good to do some different meditations, because what tends to happen is, of course, your mind gets, like with anything, your mind gets conditioned and your mind gets bored. You keep on doing the same thing. And it becomes more just like a mindless repetition, and the kind of the spark of real vitality and mindfulness goes out of it. So we'll do for this afternoon some guided loving kindness meditation, and I think we normally do like 45 minutes meditation, is that right? Start at 1:15? Okay. And so I'll do some, just talk a little bit about that first, and then we can do the 45 minutes meditation. So the particular method that I'm going to be teaching here is a method that I learnt from my teacher, Uncle Ajahn Mahachachai, who's a Thai meditation master. And he developed this method which is, I think, very beautiful and very carefully sort of thought through for leading your mind to be able to experience loving kindness. And very often when we talk about loving kindness meditation, excuse me, it's Perth springtime. We talk about loving kindness meditation, we have the like the words, may all beings be happy and so on. But we don't so much have the kind of the step-by-step way of approaching that. And the most important part about the practice is not the words, of course, but it's a feeling of loving kindness. So what we call loving kindness, or metta, of course, it is a feeling, right? It's an emotion. So it's a meditation that's very directly on your emotions. And particularly, it's one which is very directly working with those emotions that are the most, cause us often the most pain and the most anguish, the stress and the anxiety and the sadness and all of those things. Of course, there are many things in life that cause us suffering, but often those things are the ones that, they're the most urgent form of suffering that we have. And so to do loving kindness meditation is to just go straight to that and straight to turn it upside down, turn it back to front. And often we can find that when we feel like we have those kind of feelings, when we feel like we're always annoyed, you feel like you're always kind of on the edge of despair or depressed or something like that, then it's at those moments, curiously enough, when sometimes that loving kindness can flip us around and we can drop those things and we feel this tremendous joy arising. And where does that joy come from? Where does the joy of loving kindness comes from? Well, it comes from the freedom. It comes from the freedom from all of that suffering. And it's such a relief to not have to be negative and hateful and spiteful and vicious and nasty and all of those other things. It's such a relief. So that moment when we're in the meditation and your mind just sort of switches and lets go, and suddenly all of that joy arises. It's like nothing else. And then you look back on that moment and you think, that's it. That's what they were talking about all these years. I was sitting there thinking I was meditating. That's what they meant. Right. Very, very powerful, and you realize that this is why, not just the Buddha, but all of the great spiritual teachers talk about this loving kindness. You talk about how transformative it is. You talk about how essential it is. And in the Buddhist texts, they call these meditations Brahma Viharas, right? Brahma Viharas. Yeah, this literally means that Brahma is God, right? So Brahma Vihara literally is the dwelling of God. It's where God lives. That's how exalted and powerful these things are. So like all things we do in Buddhism, the most exalted and beautiful and transformative things have very small and humble and everyday beginnings. So we have to learn to accept ourselves. You have to learn to forgive yourself. You have to learn even to love yourself. My goodness. No, not that. Anything but that. Yes, you're going to have to. No, please. Welcome, just in time. So it seems that the idea that we can have loving kindness for all beings all across the universe, that's easy, right? Oh, that's not a problem. But to have loving kindness for this one being who's sitting here, this is something which it's a little bit more close to home, isn't it? It's a little bit more real, right? This is why, why we sometimes have a problem with it, because it's real, actually. It's not just fake. You're not just mumbling words and feeling good about yourself, but you're actually dealing with the reality. So we begin by doing loving kindness for ourselves, and about loving kindness for a loved person. For this meditation this afternoon, we're only doing a short meditation, so we're not going to do all that much, but we'll just begin. We'll do loving kindness for oneself and for a loved person. We'll see how that goes. So, who is a lovable person? Right? Who is a lovable person? So, the person to think about developing loving kindness for in your meditation. Okay, one person, right? Not lots of people, just one. and one person who you have an easy and simple and uncomplicated love for. It doesn't matter so much how strong your love for them is, it's much more important how simple it is. Okay? So we have one person to develop loving kindness for. And as we practice, we begin by doing what we can. Like what we can do is we can direct our attention, we can keep our mind centered in our body. So these are good things. This is helping us develop our mindfulness of the body. It's helping us to become less distracted and so on. And we can say to ourselves the words, may I be happy, and so on. Again, that's not a bad thing. That's the right intention of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? To develop that intention. It's a good thing. But it's still a bit shallow, isn't it? Just saying the words. So what we're really looking for is a feeling of loving kindness. Now when we're doing the meditation, just relax, just go through the meditation, but just keep on peeking, keep on looking, and see whether you can see that feeling. It's not going to come when you expect it. It's not going to come because you force it. It's not going to come because, you're the greatest meditator in the world or something like that. It's going to sneak up on you. It's going to be there when you least expect it. It's going to come because it's part of who you are already. Right? And this is really the secret of loving kindness meditation. All Buddhist meditations are based on reality. They're not based on fantasies. And so this idea of loving kindness is not just an idea. It's actually something which is real and which is inside every person who's here. So what we do here is we call metta bhavana. Metta bhavana. The word bhavana literally means making more of something. So we make more of loving kindness. We make our loving kindness grow. Right? So we're not magically calling it into existence. We're tuning into it. We're becoming aware of it. And it's through that power of awareness that all of those forces which are restricting and holding down our loving kindness, all those forces will fade away and the loving kindness itself will grow and will flourish. Okay, so let's do some meditation for the next 45 minutes. So sitting quietly, allowing the mind to settle back inside the body. Not running off to the future. Not going back to the past. Just being content here and now. leaving the mind, settled in the heart, and say to oneself the words, may I be happy, may I be happy, may I be happy. Repeating those words again and again and again, evenly, steadily, confidently, clearly, making a firm foundation for the mind. as you continue with those words, you notice that along with the words is something else. There's something more subtle. And that's the feeling of loving kindness. Sometimes you just turn around and there it is. And you wonder, was that there all along? How is it that I didn't notice before? And now as we're sitting peacefully in meditation, you notice the feeling, hold that in the mind. And keep it safe, keep it close. Just like you're holding a little bird in your hands. So carefully. You wouldn't, if you held it too tight, you'd squeeze it. If you held it too loose, it'd fly away. So just enough. And you keep that little bird safe in your hands. In the same way, you hold the feeling of loving kindness in your hands. Carefully, gently, until you can feel that joy and that sense of ease spreading out through your whole body. moving to the loving kindness for the loved person. Keeping the mind centered and settled inside your body. Bring to mind the name of that loved person. And just keep on going. May they be happy. May they be happy. May they be happy. Repeating the words again and again and again. And taking that same loving kindness and spreading it out to all beings. Moving out from your body, radiating out, spreading out, filling up the whole world. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Now coming near to the end of the meditation, from all beings who come back to the loved one, may that loved one be happy. May they be happy. May they be happy. And to oneself, may I be happy. May I be happy. May I be happy. Then letting the words of metta go, letting the feeling of loving kindness fade away, and allowing the mind to return to a neutral space, empty, open and clear. And with the mind empty and clear, just take a minute to reflect back over the practice we've just done together, inquiring into cause and effect. What just happened? How did I use my mind? How did my mind change during the meditation? What was useful? What was obstructive? What was it like when I finally contacted that beautiful, peaceful feeling of loving kindness? And finally, we can dedicate the merit of our practice. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings realize Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And you can open your eyes, come out of meditation. Thank you so much, Christina. Okay, number one question here from Singapore. Hello, Singapore, nameless Singapore person. I have great results from meditating, but after going to sleep with a peaceful mind, I wake up full of negative thoughts, depressed and demotivated. What's wrong and what can I do? Oh dear. So you have good meditation and then you go to bed and you have a good sleep and you wake up full of negative thoughts, depressed and demotivated. That sounds exactly like me every morning before my cup of coffee. There is a very obvious solution to that. What do they say when we saw Ross Bollitter, the Zen teacher? He said, what was it? Oh yeah, that's right. When tired sleep, when thirsty drink, when hungry eat, when thirsty drink, when tired drink coffee. There you go. So I don't know whether that's the solution here. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. I mean, sometimes that is all that's the issue. It's just that, we do have different body rhythms and things like that during the day. So sometimes, that's all it is. It's just the different parts of the day and we have different kind of energy levels. So that's not necessarily anything to be worried about. On the other hand, maybe there's some kind of underlying kind of emotional issue or something which is coming up. It's a bit hard to say without knowing something more. I would suggest maybe Maybe just try this when you get up in the morning. Give yourself, maybe get up 10 minutes, 15 minutes earlier, and get up, wash your face or have a shower and move your body around a little bit, do a bit of exercise, and then just sit meditation for even just a few minutes, even 5 or 10 minutes in the morning. And then if you're feeling like that, and then just look into those emotions. Don't worry if you're feeling depressed or whatever, that's fine, but just look at them and look at those emotions, look at those feelings and learn to accept them. It's okay, right? It's just feelings. So don't get too overwhelmed by it or too caught up in it. You just feel it, you know it, accept it, okay, let go. And maybe by doing that, by bringing more awareness to it, more forgiveness to those feelings, then you won't be so distressed by them, and you might find that the feelings will ease themselves as time goes on. Okay, next question, SOC from Sri Lanka. Hello SOC in Sri Lanka, how are you going? My biggest distraction in meditation is my monkey mind. When I look at my thoughts, I find that ego and the feeling of fear are mostly at their roots. What should I do to progress? Very good. Okay, so when you look at your thoughts, you find that ego and the feeling of fear are at the roots. Very important, right? So we think about this idiom, we use the idiom of the monkey mind, okay? So what do you do with a monkey mind, right? What do you do if there's a monkey that's running around and messing around and so on? Do you try to catch it? You can put it in a cage? Well, yeah, but you'll have a monkey rattling your cage and the monkey won't be very happy. Right? Do you tie it up? Well, you can, but then you try to go near it and it'll bite you or something. Right? Monkeys are hard to look after. They're not easy. Yeah? Or you could try loving your monkey. When I visited a monastery once with a monk there who looked after all of these monkeys who had been sort of dumped there, like orphans from, road accidents or whatever. And these weren't just little, cute little monkeys. These were like really quite big ones, actually. I don't know what kind of monkeys were. It's in the south of Thailand. And he just used to take all of these monkeys in and look after them. And honestly, they'd just be like crawling all over him all the time, right? He'd just be talking to you, and these monkeys would be climbing on him and hanging off different parts of him and stuff like that, and he'd be tickling them and things. And he just loved those monkeys so much. And he wasn't disturbed by them or whatever, he just loved them. And so they didn't bite him or anything. They might have bit people who tried to get too close to him. You probably want to be a bit careful. So don't think of your monkey mind as being an enemy or something you need to get rid of or anything like that. If your mind really is a monkey, and if it's been driven by fear, right, then give it love, give it assurance, make it feel that it's okay. Yeah? And of course that sense of ego, so you mentioned that sense of ego there. But remember also ego in Buddhism, actually ego is not a very good word. And it's not quite an accurate word either. Even in a Western context, ego has a somewhat interesting history. It's associated with the psychology of Sigmund Freud, of course. But curiously enough, Freud actually never used the word ego a single time in any of his writings. Okay, something that not many people know. Yeah? And when he was writing, of course, he was writing in German, and he just used a colloquial German term, das Ich, right? Das Ich, the I. And when they translated it into English, they thought that just to say the I was too, colloquial or informal, so they thought we'd better turn it into Latin instead. That sounds much more important. So they translated it as ego. And when you call it an ego, it sounds much more like it's a thing. It's like an entity. And I always used to worry about this when I first heard about this psychological term, ego. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, what is the ego? I was looking for some kind of thing. Where is it? And you realize actually the ego isn't a thing, but it's behavior. It's something that we do. And the Indian term is actually a much better one, is ahankara. Right? We find this both in Buddhism, also in the Hindu scriptures and so on. Ahankara is a much better term. I-making, literally I-making. So that the ego is not a thing, it's something that we do. Right? And so yes, our thoughts are driven, but not necessarily say driven by the ego, as if the ego is something standing behind our thoughts, driven by them, but the motivation. Our thoughts are creating and constructing and maintaining that sense of self. It's ahankara, it's an active process. The ego, that sense of I, actually is just another condition, right? It's a sankhara, it's a condition phenomena. Like any other condition phenomena, when the causes for it are not there, it will fall apart, okay? We don't have to do anything about that. It will fall apart all by itself. Right? It's just conditions. So these thoughts are there, and when you think about it, actually this is quite positive, right? Think about this. Why is it that our thoughts are so constantly creating and constructing our sense of self, right? We're always comparing, we're always judging, we're always defending our own actions, justifying ourselves, all of these things. This is all ahankara. Why do we do that? Because inside of ourselves we know that if we stop doing that, it's all going to unwind, right? This is the defense mechanisms of the self. Yeah? The self knows that it has to keep on building itself up and creating itself, propping itself up. Because when we stop doing that, that sense of self unwinds and we look in there and we think, what is there? It's nothing. It's just emptiness. It's just conditions. It's just change. And that sense of ego and that sense of self unravels. So when you see that this monkey mind is working so hard to build up this sense of self, you should rejoice. Say, aha, that's how hard you have to work, mind, in order to create this sense of self. So once you stop working and stop doing that, everything will start to unravel. So you just be at peace with that. You accept it, you let go. Don't worry about it. It's normal to have a sense of ego and self. That's what your mind does. It's normal to be afraid. That's what your mind does. You accept those things, you love them, you care for them. It's just dukkha. It's just defilements. Right? There's nothing wrong with defilements. Okay? Greed, hatred, delusion, samsara and dukkha and all of these things. It's not like evil or nasty or bad things in a sense, right? All it is if you have these things, you're going to suffer. That's all. Right? So there's no cause to judge or be worried or concerned about it. You just understand, as long as I keep doing this, there will be suffering. That's it. So, stop, let go, and allow your mind to not suffer. Okay, next question. Jessa from the USA. How's it going, Jessa? How do you love yourself and the other when you were never loved? My goodness, really? I mean, I have to take that seriously when that kind of question's asked. If that's really the case, and if you feel that's the case, then I what can I say? I feel very sad for you. Of course, often we have been loved and we just don't recognize it. We don't realize that perhaps we've been with people who haven't been able to show their love, who haven't been able to tell us their love. This is possible. But it's also true that some people really do grow up in very unfortunate circumstances and they actually really haven't been loved. And this is something which is a very terrible thing, and it's something which is very hard to overcome. Especially if this is the case when we're young children. And the ability to love and be loved is something which forms very young in an infant, being held in the arms of its mother and just basking in that glow of the mother's love. And if you haven't had that experience or haven't had some comparable experience to that, then makes a big impression, makes a big difference. So if that's really how you feel, then you have all my sympathies. I wish I could do something more for you. One thing perhaps it might be worth just thinking about is that love is everywhere all around us. Yeah? Yes, there is in a sense a normal or an average developmental process where we learn to love from the time that we're infants. But that's not the only time we learn to love. Actually, there's love all around us all the time. I'm sitting here in this Buddhist center right now. I'm looking out the window. You probably can't see this, but in front of me there's these windows, and I'm looking at these kids playing around on the lawn there. And you can see so much love there. And it's everywhere all around. So even if you feel that maybe you've missed out on your share, still it's there if you can tune into it, if you can acknowledge and see the love that's around you. Don't feel jealous, don't feel sad that you've missed out on it, but appreciate the fact that it's there, that it's real. And even think about this, think about that by going through that experience, by having that lack or that loss, right? You are in a special and privileged position to be able to help others. Because you know what that's like, and you have some inkling of what that issue is and what that problem is, and you also have some inkling of what needs to be done about it. Maybe you haven't found your answer yet. Maybe you're just exploring, and there's a lot more you have to do. But you're on that path, you found something, you have some hope. And there are a lot of people who have been through that same situation that you've been, who also feel completely unloved and so on, but they have no hope, they have no idea. They just feel despair. So perhaps you could think about it that way, that within your situation, it might not feel like it at the moment, but that you have the potential from that experience to be of great help and great benefit to others. And when you learn to be able to give that love to others, then perhaps you might be able to find what it likes to be loved yourself. Okay, so that's our questions. It looks like we've kind of have we run out of time, or do we have space for some questions here? We do have some time for questions, okay. Any questions? Is there a box? Questions in the box? No? Right. Everyone is very peaceful this afternoon. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, let's finish up by paying respects to the Triple Gem.